everybody! Thank you so much for hanging out with me in my studio tonight. There is a video on my video archives that you can kind of see an introduction to everything that I did last month that didn't post on Facebook Live, which gives you a little bit about my background. I also showed some different examples of my work and things that we'll be covering in these Facebook Lives. So that's about a 10-minute video. If you feel like watching that, you can get a little bit of more information. Tonight, I'm so excited that I have some questions that have been coming in. And one of them is a question that I get from so many of my students, whether it's during a workshop or after the workshop, or if they come back and say, why isn't this working the way it did when we were in class? So Lorraine, I really wanted to thank you for posting this question first. Let's see. Here is a painting that is a lot like the one Lorraine was having questions about. It is a birch panel, and it's been coated with several, it's an old painting actually, and it was created on birch panel. It actually has like this stripe across it that I have been putting layers and layers of clear and then white pigmented wax on this. However, you can see that it's not fully covering that stripe in the middle. Lorraine was having the same type of problem where she had a regular birch board, which looks a lot like this. She was coating the front with white pigmented wax, but it was not covering it enough so that you didn't see that sort of brown coming through from the board. This is a very typical issue that people have, and I want to help you out with that. So first of all, I would like to start with how I pigment my wax and the safest ways to do so. In the morning, I come out to my studio and I have this big old box of unbleached clear beeswax. I usually put that into this, I know it's kind of far away, but it is my electric griddle skillet, I guess, and turn that to just below 200 degrees. We also have griddles over here that have temperature gauges, and you want to keep those below 200 degrees. Your wax really just needs to come to the melting point and stay molten. So once I turn it to 200, if the wax starts to solidify, then I know the temperature of the actual surface of my griddle is not the accurate temperature that it is on the gauge. I want to keep it below 200 degrees. Once it's molten, you can even start turning the temperature gauge down until it starts to solidify again, then turn it back up, and then you've got your wax at a temperature that's just molten but safe. If you accidentally turn your wax up to like 300 degrees, some of the students accidentally turn up to 400 degrees, you would see smoke coming out of this clear beeswax, and that smoke will go into your lungs and cause a lot of damage. So we will always want to avoid that. So most important thing with encaustic is not to get your wax too hot at that point. The next important thing is how to pigment your wax and what not to use as well. I'll start with. Do not use acrylic or tempera paint to mix into your wax. Those are like plastic and extremely toxic. Accidentally used an acrylic paint that was mixed in with a little tube of my oil paints one time, and I squeezed it into the wax and it literally started bubbling and spurting, and it was awful. Like, I immediately had to get it out of my studio and get away from it because you could smell the toxins. So what I'd like to show you now is what I use for the most part, oil paint. This is a wonderful brand, Winsor & Newton. There's all different types of oil paints. I try to stay away from water-soluble oil paints. They don't give me, they don't elicit the effect that I would like when you mix them with wax. Oil paint is a great way. So let me just show you here. This is a brand new tube that I've been waiting to open until I'm with you. Sometimes at the top of this tube, you'll see a little oil in a new tube. So a lot of people just kind of squeeze that out onto a paper towel, and sometimes the oil residue comes out like that. There are some encaustic painters that I've heard that will put this oil paint on their palette and leave it all night. I don't have time for that. And if you know me, I'm not a very patient person, and I'm a very messy person. But either way, you don't have to do that. But if you're really particular about it, you can. So then when I'm taking paint right out of the tube, this is actually titanium white. I love this white as compared to zinc white. Zinc, when I mix that with the wax, and it's at, when you get too much wax and oil paint mixed together with the zinc, it kind of clumps up, which is disgusting, I know, but where I like to use titanium seeds for that. So I will take the titanium white and add about a quarter's worth, like a coin quarter. So I'm going to set that down for a moment. And this is my large tin of just pure unbleached beeswax. I'm going to pour some of that, about half of a container, into one of these little mini tins. I can hold these, well, I don't have a lot of feeling in my fingers anymore because I've been doing this for so long, but also if you keep the temperature to 200 or below, it's not that hot, and so I'm not burning myself. It's almost like if you get your eyebrows waxed. It's about like that. So I'm going to add this much pigment into this tin of wax, which has about a half container of wax in it. And then take one of my brushes, and you can kind of see I'm just putting that in. So if you had a palette and you wanted to mix several different colors of oil paint together on your palette, you could then scoop that up and put it into the tin. For the most part, I do mix my colors, but when I'm using this pure titanium white, I just put that right into the tin. So this is going to mix very quickly. You can see there's still a little bit on the brush, so I'm going to keep mixing that a little bit. Okay, well, that's mixing up a little bit. I will also tell you another way that I like to pigment my wax. Pour just a little bit of wax into this small circular container, and I like to use dry pigments. Get that kind of close. That is a Gamblin dry pigment. I really love Gamblin pigments. Another one is, let's see, this is Earth Pigments, beautiful pistachio. And so let me show you this for a second. So I'll take a measuring spoon and just put a teaspoon of dry pigment into that little container. Usually I would use a mask and gloves to do that. I don't have time to then you'll be able to see what I'm talking about if I have a mask on. That's why I don't teach that in my classes, the dry pigment, because it is airborne. And if I had any fans on in here when blowing or anything, that could go into your lungs, and that's dangerous. So I mostly stick with oil paint. Looks like somebody's tuning in, and I just wanted to say hello, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, please do it on in. So let's take this white oil paint that we've mixed. I'm going to add that to this strip here. I use bristle brushes that are natural bristle brushes or foam brushes. These do not melt, and the bristle brushes do not melt because they're natural hair. Don't use synthetic brushes. They are plastic and they will not melt. It's also toxic. So let me see if you can see the area that I've just covered right here. So this is starting to cover that strip of green, and so that we're not able to see that anymore, which is really what we want to do. If you're covering up an old painting, if you're trying to make the surface of your birch panel all one color, it's really nice to do. This is sort of the fun part. These are the two types of blowtorches that I use. The bottoms of these, just the gas part costs about $3.50 at Ace Hardware, but the tops are around $60, but you'll use them forever. So this one here is a really nice and strong one. I would not recommend buying a any type of torch top that is not a self-starter. If you get the flint one, you're going to be trying to start that flint thing the whole time when you're also trying to use brushes and all your other hands to do all your artwork. I think it'll really get on your nerves. So I recommend this one. You just turn it on and off, and then once you hit the buttons, it stays on. And you let go your finger, it turns off. Very exciting. So I'm going to now fuse. So I've just fused that area where I put the solid white, opaque white paint onto that, and I let it cool just for this long. It only takes that long for that to cool. And you can see that that is a nice and smooth area. I'm starting to cover the rest with that white paint. The other blowtorch I also recommend to students is also a self-starter, but you turn this lefty-loosey all the way to the left. You turn it off, it's righty-tighty. You can hear that. And that's how that torch starts. This is, the nice thing about this is you can adjust it and start turning it down, and your flame can get nice and manageable. But it does the same thing. It just takes a little bit longer. I don't know if you can see this, but it really elicited the same amount of heat and smoothness to the piece right here. Nancy, thank you for tuning in. We only have a few more minutes, and so if anyone would love to send any questions through Facebook Live, I would love to answer them. Also, if you go to my website, I have quite a few new events and workshops going on. If you go to www.pennytrees.com and click on the latest section, I've got quite a few happenings at my home studio here in Decatur. You can click on those and you'll get all the information, the dates and the times and the prices. And I'm super excited about my next open art retreat with Judy Host, and that's going to be at the Goat Farm. We had one that was super successful, and the other one is coming up in September. All that information is also on my website and also on openartretreats.com. There's only about 4 spaces left. Keep that very small. So if you're interested, go check out the information, but always please feel free to email me through my website or Facebook or call me, and I'd love to help you with whatever you would like to learn in this wonderful technique of embossing. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next month.